Oh, Vikings, let's win this game.
The Minnesota Vikings are making an unexpected decision regarding Kyler Murray ahead of their second preseason game. At the same time, a former starter truly appears to be running out of time in Minnesota. Off the field, a development involving Brian Flores could create serious problems. And a Vikings roster cut resulted in a player being claimed by the Green Bay Packers, less than a month before the two rivals face each other in Week 1. The Minnesota Vikings reportedly do not plan to play Kyler Murray in Saturday's preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens. Minnesota Star-Tribune reporter Ben Gessling revealed the expected decision during a podcast appearance, indicating that the Vikings will use their joint practices with Baltimore as a more important evaluation for their starting quarterback. Murray participated in Minnesota's 13-10 preseason victory over the New York Giants and helped direct an opening possession that lasted 10 plays, covered 54 yards, and ended with a 35-yard field goal. His statistical production was limited, but the drive offered encouraging signs about his comfort within Kevin O'Connell's offense. Murray operated from under center on most of those snaps and appeared comfortable handling an offensive structure that did not rely almost exclusively on shotgun formations. That detail matters because the Vikings want their quarterback to execute the full system rather than limiting the playbook around his previous tendencies. Holding Murray out against Baltimore would also follow the approach teams have frequently taken with him throughout his career. He has rarely participated extensively in preseason games and has sat out 18 of 23 possible exhibition appearances. Murray has also never recorded a rushing or passing touchdown during the preseason. His most productive exhibition performance came against the Kansas City Chiefs in 2025, when he completed 11 of 17 attempts for 137 yards. Minnesota does not need Murray to prove himself through extended preseason action if the coaching staff is satisfied with his work during practices and believes he is ready for the regular season. Protecting the confirmed starter from unnecessary injury risk could be more valuable than giving him additional snaps in a game that will not affect the standings. His absence, however, will create a major opportunity for Carson Wentz and J.J. McCarthy. Wentz produced the stronger performance against the Giants, completing 9 of 14 passes for 81 yards, 1 touchdown, and a 103.6 passer rating. He appeared composed and in control of the offense. McCarthy completed 4 of 7 passes for 34 yards across 3 possessions and failed to generate the same momentum. His recent struggles have raised questions about whether he should automatically receive the backup position or whether Wentz has already moved ahead of him. With Murray expected to remain on the sideline, both quarterbacks should receive more opportunities against Baltimore. Wentz can strengthen his case by demonstrating that his experience and stability make him the safest backup quarterback option. McCarthy must respond by looking more comfortable, making faster decisions, and showing the potential that once made him Minnesota's expected quarterback of the future. Murray's absence may therefore benefit the Vikings by allowing the coaching staff to fully evaluate the most unsettled part of the quarterback room. The starting position has already been decided, but the battle directly behind Murray may only be beginning. Minnesota's crowded quarterback room could soon force the organization to move on from Max Brosmer. Kyler Murray is firmly established as the starter, while J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz appear to be competing for the backup quarterback position. McCarthy offers youth and developmental upside, but Wentz provided greater stability and command during the preseason opener. That leaves Brosmer at the bottom of the current depth chart, despite starting games for Minnesota last season. Adam Carlson of Vikings on Sports Illustrated argued that the quarterback hierarchy now appears clear, and that Brosmer has not done enough to move himself out of the 4th position. The game against the Giants should have provided him with an important opportunity to challenge for the 3rd quarterback job, but he played only 3 snaps before leaving with a thumb injury. Wentz returned to the field in his place and completed the game, creating even more separation between the veteran and Brosmer. The timing of the injury could hardly have been worse. Minnesota is unlikely to carry 4 quarterbacks on its 53-man roster, meaning Brosmer needs practice and preseason repetitions to convince the coaching staff that he offers enough value to justify a position. Missing those opportunities while Wentz continues to perform well makes that challenge considerably more difficult. Brosmer's most realistic path may now involve clearing waivers and returning to Minnesota on the practice squad, where he could continue developing without occupying a place on the active roster. Even that outcome is not guaranteed, because another team could become interested if the Vikings release him. The next few days will be critical as Minnesota evaluates the condition of his thumb and determines whether he can return before final decisions are made. The Vikings are also dealing with a significant loss elsewhere on the roster following Jamal Adams' injury. Josh Metellus spoke emotionally about what the veteran safety has endured and how difficult it was to watch another setback interrupt his football journey. Metellus explained that Adams quickly connected with his Vikings teammates and represented the qualities Kevin O'Connell wants within the organization. Their relationship extended beyond the facility, with Adams and other players reportedly spending time together at one another's homes. That connection makes his loss especially painful, even though Adams was not guaranteed to make the final roster when he signed. His injury removes an experienced and versatile option from the secondary, while also affecting teammates who had already embraced him. Minnesota must now manage two very different forms of preseason uncertainty. Brosmer is fighting to remain with the organization after an injury reduced his opportunity to compete, while Adams is facing another difficult interruption after quickly earning the respect of the locker room. In both cases, the Vikings must balance personal disappointment with the unforgiving reality of building a 53-man roster. A potentially significant development in Brian Flores' discrimination lawsuit against the National Football League could create serious consequences for the league. Although the contents and actual importance of the reported evidence remain unknown, sports business reporter Daniel Kaplan reported that Korn Ferry, a consulting firm that assisted the Las Vegas Raiders during a head coaching search, possesses documentation that could help Flores' pending case. Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio described the material as a possible smoking gun, capable of changing the direction of the lawsuit, while another source reportedly characterized the finding as extraordinary. Those descriptions are dramatic, but they should not be treated as proof, because the document has not been publicly revealed, and its contents have not been independently established within the reporting provided. What makes the development noteworthy is Korn Ferry's extensive history of helping National Football League organizations search for coaches and front office executives. The firm has worked with numerous teams and has considerable experience with the league's hiring process. Documentation connected to that work could therefore carry more weight than an unsupported outside opinion, depending on what it actually contains and whether a court allows it to become part of the case. Kaplan reported that the Miami Dolphins have objected to unsealing the document, while Flores' legal team is seeking access to it. The Tennessee Titans are also reportedly opposing an attempt by Flores to add a new allegation to the lawsuit. Ray Horton, a longtime National Football League coach, is included as a co-plaintiff, which connects Tennessee directly to the litigation. Attorney David Gottlieb argued that Flores should be permitted to seek relief for newly developed anti-discrimination claims, rather than being forced to wait. The broader case centers on concerns about fairness and diversity in the National Football League's hiring process. The Rooney Rule was created to address the lack of diversity among head coaches and senior football executives, but the league has continued to face criticism over whether teams consistently respect the purpose of that policy. It would be irresponsible to claim that the unknown document proves the rule was violated or treated as a formality. However, if the material eventually becomes public and supports the strongest descriptions being used, the National Football League could face significant legal and reputational consequences. Florio argued that a public trial and a major verdict might be necessary to force the league and its teams to confront problems that he believes have remained visible for years. The National Football League's position within American professional sports is not likely to collapse because of one lawsuit, but its hiring practices could receive far greater scrutiny if meaningful evidence emerges. Flores has continued working as Minnesota's defensive coordinator while the legal process develops, and the case still has many unresolved questions. For now, the reported document represents a potentially important development, not a proven conclusion. Its true impact will depend on what it contains, whether it becomes available to Flores' attorneys, and how the court determines it can be used. A Vikings roster move that initially appeared routine has become much more interesting after the Green Bay Packers claimed rookie edge defender Arden Walker off waivers. Minnesota released Walker on August 17th while signing outside linebacker Kenny Dyson, and Green Bay added the former Vikings prospect one day later through the National Football League waiver process. The destination immediately adds tension because the Packers will visit Minnesota on September 13th for the opening week of the regular season. The teams will meet again at Lambeau Field on November 15th, creating the possibility that Walker could face the organization that removed him from its roster twice during his rookie season. There is no guarantee that he will survive Green Bay's final cuts or receive a meaningful role if he remains with the Packers. Still, Green Bay now has an extended opportunity to evaluate a young pass rusher who spent the offseason and training camp learning within Brian Flores' defensive program. Walker joined Minnesota as an undrafted free agent from Colorado after beginning his college career at Missouri. He appeared in 36 games with 15 starts during his 3 seasons at Colorado, recording 91 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 14 quarterback pressures, and 2 forced fumbles. Those numbers demonstrate developmental potential, but Walker faced an extremely difficult route to Minnesota's final roster. Andrew Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner lead a deep outside linebacker group, while Bo Richter, Chaz Chambliss, and several other players are competing for the limited positions behind them. The Vikings decided to adjust that competition by replacing Walker with Dyson, who recently recorded 4.5 sacks during the United Football League season. Minnesota's decision does not necessarily mean the organization considered Walker incapable of developing into a National Football League contributor. Teams regularly exchange players at the bottom of the roster during August, while evaluating injuries, special teams value, and preseason performances. The Packers simply saw enough potential to prevent Walker from reaching unrestricted free agency. It would also be an exaggeration to suggest that his brief experience in Minnesota automatically gives Green Bay a major strategic advantage. National Football League teams change terminology, assignments, and game plans, and one developmental player is unlikely to possess information capable of deciding a divisional matchup. Nevertheless, the timing makes the transaction impossible to ignore. Walker was inside the Vikings program throughout the offseason, and he has now joined their biggest rival, shortly before the two teams meet in Week 1. What began as an ordinary corresponding roster move has developed into another storyline surrounding one of the National Football League's most emotional rivalries. Minnesota chose Dyson, Green Bay chose Walker, and the preseason will determine whether either player can turn that decision into a lasting National Football League opportunity. The Vikings now have 4 major situations developing at the same time. Kyler Murray is reportedly expected to sit against Baltimore, opening the door for Carson Wentz and J.J. McCarthy to intensify their battle for the backup quarterback job. Max Brosmer appears to be approaching a possible roster exit after his thumb injury reduced an already limited opportunity to climb the depth chart, while Jamal Adams' loss has affected both Minnesota's secondary and the teammates who quickly embraced him. Brian Flores' lawsuit could be approaching an important legal development if the reported documentation proves as significant as some sources believe, and Arden Walker has crossed directly into enemy territory after Green Bay claimed him before the Week 1 rivalry game. Which story concerns you the most? Who should win Minnesota's backup quarterback competition? And how do you feel about a former Vikings defender landing with the Packers? Leave your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for the next Minnesota Vikings update. Stay tuned. Skol Vikings. Let's go.